Today's show, Tour de France review, some quick takes, some highlights, a few revelations. We'll do some transfer market, the USACrits, Boise, Utah, San Rafael, a few of those others. Some really bad crashes, upcoming Masters, Nationals, some things that make you go, some winners and losers. Welcome to the Between Two Wheels podcast. This is Tyler Janke along with Chris Flower. How you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. How are you?
Good. Welcome back. I was worried you didn't know where I worked anymore.
I thought you changed offices, so I was going to a different place for the last few weeks, and they just looked at me weird when I said I was there for the podcast.
Right. And we're missing Curt, but word is he's back on his bike.
I've seen him on his bike, and he's doing very well.
Yeah, he is back on his bike. We've both been doing well. Well, you've been doing really well. I'm glad you're back in here. First of all, we'll talk about the tour. I know how we communicated about it. I was ranting and raving on it solo, but what was your take on the tour itself? Last I left off with everybody here was right around, I guess there were 2 stages left. So
like 2 real stages, or
I went
20
through,
and 21?
I went through stage 19, so
okay.
Yeah, I went through the first bad day, so it was just the last mountain day, and then
finish.
Obviously the finish. So why don't we talk about the last day, maybe 2 days real quick, and then we can kind of go back and just do some of the highlights of the tour.
Well, we'll call stage 21 just kind of the show, whatever.
That one I only cared about the last K and a half.
Right. But stage 20 ended up getting cut in length significantly. It was going to be a huge day. I think there was a handful of Cat 1 climbs, maybe even an HC.
Right. And it was only going to be in the 130, 120 kilometer range in the first place. But they cut it way down to about, 57?
It ended up being just like, around 30 miles? So whatever that translates to into kilometers. But basically they started at the base of whatever mountain it was they were climbing and just said, have at it. It ended up being an entertaining stage because
Val d'Aran.
Yeah. What was the route they did last year where they basically did, was it a 40K stage with the grid start?
Grid
and everything?
start. I was disappointed they didn't throw that in the mix this time.
There might have been some complaints if they did that. I don't know. But it was cool because it was just kind of a full gas effort, and the break ended up staying away effectively with Nibali, and it was just cool to see a full gas effort up that climb. Right.
So one thing I did. Okay, so recap for those of you who've been out of the loop. Bernal wins the tour. Yeah. Takes stage 19. They didn't actually give him the stage win there.
Right.
They shortened that one due to avalanche, and some people were complaining, but I mean they're stupid, or going off half cocked before they know all the facts. And then they shortened stage 20, and Bernal just, and while the tour was awesome up until that point, and stage 20 was pretty cool, but it all of a sudden drew me back into the feeling of Ineos/Sky just droning on at the front, kind of wearing everybody down, getting dropped out the back rather than attacks up the road, because Nibali didn't really count into overall.
Right.
And you kind of had the same old thing, but yet it was a little different still.
Yeah, you kind of had a little bit of action there at the end from Movistar, whether it was it Landa that threw in a late attack. I mean, he wasn't going to really gain much, but it was still made for somewhat exciting racing, especially seeing his teammates chase him down.
Right.
So they always kind of seemed to have a little race within the race there.
Right.
But it was a fun stage. It was made for easier watching because it was substantially shorter.
Yeah. So what did you think of Bernal? You picked him early on, I think before the tour started. Is that correct?
That is correct. I think both Curt and I picked Bernal.
And is that just due to the fact that Froome was out, Dumoulin was out, or that you just are so insightful? I
think even with Dumoulin in there, I still would have picked Bernal. I think we picked him before Dumoulin called off the tour. And I think we would have picked him. We probably would have, I can't speak for Curt, but I would have picked Froome over Bernal because I think they would have just gone all in for Froome as a team. And Froome, I think, would have had the chops to win. But I still think that Bernal was less likely to have a bad day than Thomas. Like, I think if Thomas was all on and never had a bad day and never faltered, they probably would have given him the win. But he had one or two too many little slips.
Yeah.
And that kind of afforded Bernal a window to jump through. And he just seemed to have, I mean, he hasn't had an opportunity to really shine like he did in the Tour, but you could kind of catch glimpses of it, whether it was California last year, a couple of the other week-long stage races where it's like, this guy's got the chops to win a Grand Tour. I mean, he just definitely seemed to have that type of class.
Yeah, Bernal is going to be amazing, and it's always interesting. This guy wins a young one, Tour young. I remember this with Ulrich.
Yeah,
young guy wins it, smashes it, and you're like, the comments are like, well, here's the next 10 years, because we've had, kind of wins them in clumps, Merckx. Obviously, we've had Lance since then. But Indurain, they're just kind of solid progression. And you're like, oh, you get a guy at 22, 23, it's just going to be the next 10 years of this.
Right.
Yes and no. If he was a time trialer like Thomas, Froome, Indurain as an example, I would be less interested in that and thinking that may be the case. But when he's just more of a pure climber that can time trial okay, to me, it's a little more exciting.
Right, and this Tour definitely set up in his favor with one individual time trial.
Yes.
Obviously, if there was a longer individual time trial or two individual time trials, it may have favored Thomas more so than Bernal.
Right. So what do you think about Thibaut Pinot? Not obviously he had I don't know what he had, torn leg.
It sounded like a torn quadricep. He came off on stage 19 or was it 20?
19 was when he dropped that day.
But it was before they had called the stage short, right?
Right. And evidently, the day before that, he didn't look so grand. He was kind of holding on, and evidently it happened the day before or one of those two. But what do you, because the way he was riding early, and it's hard to say because some guys are flying early and then other guys come into it late. But with his leg like that, it would have been interesting to see if he could have made a difference and gone with Bernal on stage 19.
Yeah, and that's hard to say because Bernal seems to have that really strong long-range engine, and Pinot seems like he's got the short, jumpy stuff where he can kind of sit on as best he can and then attack the last 1 kilometer. So Bernal was going early. I mean, he was gone several kilometers before the top of the climb, and nobody could go with him. And it just seemed like I suspect he probably could have ridden away from Pinot, and you almost kind of got to think that Pinot being effectively solo, he would probably look to Jumbo-Visma to follow and then maybe get stuck in the same position that Kruijswijk was in.
But I just, the few days earlier when he's when he wins the stage, he went fairly early on that day too, 6-7K, and he's flicking Bernal to come through, and Bernal's like, I can't, and then he attacks and just gets rid of him.
Yeah, that's true.
So I'm whether he was still at that level or not, my thinking is he probably could have at least gone with Bernal,
right,
which would have been somewhat. These are all who knows, pie in the sky type of thing. But I'm just looking for next year. Could be you bring all these guys back together. Now, damn it, we're going to talk about transfer season, and if they're all on the same team, it just nullifies a lot of that fun.
What's I don't know Pinot's pedigree too well. Does he have a strong time trial?
Well, he time trialed well enough.
Yeah,
I mean, he definitely has improved over the years. He's not, he's not Roman Bardet or Michael Rasmussen. I remember seeing Rasmussen when he was in the yellow or close to it, and he was going around roundabouts like falling. I mean, it's a tragedy of errors.
It just makes you wonder, like, okay, was this the prime opportunity for somebody like Pinot or Bardet to win? And what are they going to do next year? Are they going to do the same format? Are they going to throw more time trials in? It seems like if ever there was a tour catered to Pinot to win, this would have been it, and he's got the misfortune of his injury.
I think you're exactly right, but the French, they know how to try to design a course that will help them again in the future. So
maybe they'll go with no time trials.
Maybe it'll be all just short, punchy climbs, so Alaphilippe gets it.
That could work. Yeah.
So Alaphilippe, what was your take on him over the tour, and did you ever think that he was a big threat?
I thought he performed really well. I didn't think he had any shot of realistically winning. We saw early when they were in the Pyrenees that he was barely hanging on after 2 climbing days, and then you go a hard day, then 3 days in the Alps, and you figured, okay, he's going to come off eventually. And I'm sure Ineos and Jumbo-Visma were thinking the same thing. But I really liked the way he raced.
Yeah,
he raced aggressively when he went with Pinot a couple times to get the jersey back, and then I think he went with him on one of the Pyrenees days.
Yeah,
it was cool just to see a guy in yellow racing that assertively, as opposed to just kind of being on the defensive.
Yeah, no, exactly. And I talked about it during the time. I'm like, look. The way they always talk, you can't race like that. We saw that with Adam Yates in the Giro last year. You can't be so on fire and taking all these shots over and over on these climbs and expect to still be okay at the end of the tour. And we saw him flail, but I was all like, hey, if he wins, maybe you've got to rethink it, or maybe these are just different kind of races. But
right.
Yeah, it was at least fun to watch.
And I think some of that was probably he was racing with a lot of freedom, where he was already however many days beyond the expectation.
Right.
So he couldn't really fail. I mean, he could DNF the entire race after the first climbing stage, and everybody would still think he's a hero because of how well he did. So he was kind of advantageous there in that he could do whatever he wanted, and he was golden.
Right. So we saw some of these teams get clusters of wins. We saw obviously DeQuan Quickstep got a few with Alaphilippe and Viviani.
Yes.
Jumbo-Visma took a 4 or 5 there. Four. With the team time trial too. Well, that was part of the 4.
The other Jumbo, no, Lotto.
The Lotto Soudal or Soudal Lotto, depending on which country and
right. They get 5 or 4?
They got 4, I believe.
Okay.
3 with Caleb and 1 with Degant.
Yes.
Mitchelton Scott with 4.
Yes.
And
with
then
quite a few guys there too, which was cool.
Right. And then you just had, Bahrain Merida got 2.
Yes.
And then you got a bunch that just got, EF Education gets nothing, Dimension Data gets nothing, Trek gets nothing.
They had the yellow
CCC,
for a short period of time.
They did have the yellow.
Yeah.
And I said at the time that they should have tried to close it. Richie Porte didn't come through and help that day for Ciccone. They should have done more, because this was their only real anything at the tour.
Right.
I didn't think they were going to win a stage. I didn't think Richie's going to do better than top 10.
No.
And they needed to do something to keep him in yellow.
Right.
Because that's their whole tour. And you're right, that they got something. But even then, it feels like kind of
Yeah, because I think they ended up losing, the next day, right?
Well, he gets it, and then that's when Alaphilippe and
Right.
Thibaut go off, and they couldn't chase him down and didn't get it back. Yeah,
because I think if they had kept it for that day when they'd lost it, they would have had it for several more days, because they kind of transitioned into some flatter days.
Right.
But yeah, as you're saying, so CCC won nothing.
Right.
And who else got big wins?
Well, no one got big wins.
Right.
So anyway, let's talk about some of those teams. Which team was the most impressive? And Ineos, no tour wins or stage wins.
I'll give him a half a win.
I would agree on that, because likely he was going to win that stage anyway.
Right. Although Yates was certain he was going to win the day.
Yeah. Hey, I don't.
Even though he had fallen off.
Right.
Bernal, and I don't know if he can chase Bernal back across the flatlands between the next climb.
Well, they had caught up to each other. He had already caught him before they nullified.
Oh, did he?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because he was up there yelling, and they were still going, and the motorbike is trying to flash him down.
All right.
Either way, he would be able to just sit on. I still give the advantage to Bernal there.
Yes.
But what teams kind of really impressed you, and which ones didn't do anything for you at all, or underplayed what they could have done?
I think the most impressive was Jumbo-Visma, just because they won with the guys you wouldn't have expected to win in the conditions in which they won. Like, who's it? Tennyson,
yeah.
Won the first stage, and he's the lead-out guy for Groenewegen. He's kind of dealing with the situation of my sprinter just crashed out. I'm going to come from 40 wheels back and outsprint Sagan on an uphill kicker.
Yeah.
It's like, that's impressive.
Yeah.
You got Wout van Aert beating Viviani, who's got a perfect lead out, and Van Aert gets passed by Viviani and then doubles down and gets him with a bike throw.
Right.
It's just, that's
the
impressive.
look afterwards too is one of the glorious things of that stage.
Like Viviani's like, how did this happen? Oh, I've got a flat tire. That's got to be it.
That was the next few days.
Right. And then Groenewegen, I expected more from him. But it was cool to see him get a win. Obviously, it's not his first tour win. I think he won
last year.
Was last year or the year before? Because I think Alexander Kristoff won last year.
Well, right. He won the year before, but I think he won a stage last year. So we can double check that. But
and then went in the team time trial, and they were just. It was cool to see, even if you take the wins out of the picture, just to kind of see that team at the front of the race, up the big climbs, kind of doing what Sky did in years past, just kind of setting hard tempo with Kreuzwick and Bennett and the other guys. So it was cool to see those guys racing and taking it to Sky, Ineos, whatever.
Yes, and actually, it was also interesting to see kind of a mix because they were going for the GC, but yet they were going for the sprints, and they were able to meld those pretty good. And look how close Groenewegen was to first place with Key and Caleb several times.
Yes.
So he could have come out with 3 wins. Caleb could have come out with like 5.
Right.
I mean, so what a great tour for him, and again, that whole team actually as well.
Definitely, yeah. And it was interesting kind of seeing some of. I like Ewan. I think he's a great racer. I think he's carrying a huge chip on his shoulder.
Yeah.
Some of his comments after his wins were kind of poking a little at Mitchelton Scott, kind of like, "Oh, I was being held back for so long, and I'm glad I got this chance." And it's like, I don't know. Sometimes you hope guys will rise above that a little bit. But,
yes, but I think the sprint, he and Cavendish are kind of those kind of
a little fiery. But it was cool to see him do well. And yeah, like you said, between Caleb and Groenewegen, it's like so many of their finishes were just down to like centimeters in the bike throw. Except for the last one where you kind of think, or at least I think Groenewegen didn't see Ewan, kind of thought he had it in the bag because he stopped pedaling 5-10 meters before the finish, and then kind of saw him on the right and was like, uh-oh.
Well, on that one, Caleb went way right, and he was blocked out by some of the other riders, so maybe didn't get him in his peripheral. And then if you watch that, Caleb comes really fast right at the end, boom, around him.
Right.
And so, Groenewegen probably thought he had it. And plus, it's well known, all the sprinters say there, you don't go up the right because it's really rough. And Caleb's like, I shouldn't have gone up the right. I knew that, but I did it, and my bike was bouncing around, but it still happened. So
it was kind of his only route, too, because it just total logjam to the right of Groenewegen, to the left of Ewan. So
yeah. Either way, it was pretty good. Any teams that disappointed you? Because there's Wanty Group, Gobert, some of these other ones that you're like, they do exactly what they do. But then there's some of these World Tour teams that are not doing any better. I mean, like I said, Trek, other than Ciccone getting in the yellow that day, EF Education First, Dimension Data, CCC. I don't know.
I would say of all those, Dimension Data just never really had a presence. Like Education First, you kind of saw Iran.
A lot of breaks.
He was there at times. There was the story about TJ crashing out, if you want to have any notoriety. But Iran was there. He had a really good time trial, so he was in the mix. Trek, they had a guy in yellow for a day, but Dimension Data just I think they had. Oh, I can't even remember his name, but they had a guy in the break one day when it was just kind of like a wasted day. I mean, they really didn't do much of anything.
Yeah.
Ben King was in the race. I never really saw him.
Well, he got in a few of the big breaks where you think, oh, he's gonna Matteo Trenton Day.
Yeah,
he was in there. He got shelled out. He wasn't riding like Look, everyone comes to the tour top notch. You hope, or they hope.
Yeah.
So it's not like when he was at the Vuelta, which I think he was riding really good, and he was very opportunistic on those days, and he just outrode some other good riders because he was. I think the pool's smaller for great fitness at a race like that than the tour.
Right.
So yeah, but really, is Ben King and maybe Bosenhagen for those guys.
Right.
What a disappointment. We could kind of transition out of this into transfer market too, but where do you think Cavendish is going? I mean, is there any chance he's staying with them after getting dissed for the tour?
Well, he got dissed for the tour and said he was rounding into form perfectly, and then DNF'd whatever that stage race he did recently.
Some Adriatico.
He just didn't finish a stage. It was like, why would we have brought you to the tour to do the same? By all accounts, what I've heard, he's not coming back. I don't know where he lands. I mean, do you think he's got too big of an ego to go to like a Conti level team, kind of taking the Greipel route?
Yeah. Speaking of the Greipel route, I mean, he didn't show. I mean, there was a stage where
he walked up a hill.
Warren Barguil had a top 10 on a sprint day when he didn't even get in the top 10, and Barguil was trying to get him up there. He wasn't in the top 10 on the final day. I don't know if Cavendish, I don't see that. I see him as like, I'm quitting or.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, would he even be a good guy to go and like lead someone else out? I don't see him as being that kind of.
No, because like his
help.
riding style is more just follow, pop. Right. I mean, he's not going to be a guy who's going to throw down 300 meters of hard effort because that's just, his legs don't seem to have that.
Yeah, I don't know. I think that's tough for a guy like that to come in. That's what I give Kristoff so much credit for, because he was able to. He switched it all during the season. We talked about that with Gaviria, and then he switched at this race with Philipsen.
Right.
So good for him. Did UAE have any wins?
No, they had Philipsen with like a podium. I think was
right.
the best they pulled.
Right.
But at the same time, they were kind of active a little bit.
Well, but then we heard about the reason they weren't as active. Do you want to give the breakdown of what they the excuse that they've come up with?
So they decline that as the excuse. They say, "Oh no, our nutritionists are best of the best." Apparently, there's something to do with the drink mixes where there was an excess amount of sodium in the drink mix, leading to a substantial weight gain in the riders, and that just killed their tour. There was some speculation about that, but UAE's come out and said, "No, that's not the case. We have great nutritionists. They would never make a mistake like that."
Well, people can make mistakes. Riders are always interesting how they come up with their reasons for stuff.
It sounds better than we just didn't do well.
Right. It is odd to see someone like any of these guys, Dan Martin, Bardet, that they're getting dropped. Like the last day you saw Dan Martin, he's getting dropped before some of them. There's the field's like 50 strong, and he's pedaling away like he's off the front, but he's getting tanked off the back. So okay, let's go over some real quick, and then we'll move on. So disappointments and kind of some heartbreak.
A lot of heartbreak.
Jakob Fuglsang. I mean, he had a lot of hope coming in,
right? And
even with the first wreck, he still was right in there. But then the second wreck was nothing came about. But he quit really super quick.
And he quit. What was that? Was before the Alps, right? Or was that the first day of the Alps?
No, I think it was in between the two. Yeah.
Yeah. I think at that point it was probably a combination of my body hurts and I'm however many minutes down going into the Alps. I might as well
bail,
cut it out now, and maybe save some legs for the Vuelta.
Yeah.
Hard to say.
Dan Martin, Bardet. I mean, these are guys, Richie Porte, TJ. Oh, did I? Anyway, what did you think of the top three? And look, let's talk about wrecking. You had Geraint Thomas, last year's winner, had a tough time kind of through the season. I think he wrecked 3 times in this race and still pulls out a second place.
Right.
Pretty solid for him. I didn't hear any. You know what I do like about him? And I think it's out of bounds for Sky. If you hear some interviews, he's kind of funny and he just says stuff. He kind of reminds me of Dumoulin in that sense, where their press officers are like, hey, and you would never get those kind of comments from a Chris Froome.
Right. Yeah, he's definitely not to say less polished, but he's just maybe less guarded about what he says.
Right. Of overall tour, any other little comments or revelations or anything you saw?
It was good. It was good to see Kreuzwick on the podium.
Yeah.
Because his team put in a lot of work.
Right.
It was a bummer to see them lose 2 of their guys. Wout van Aert due to a nasty crash, which it sounds like he got out of the hospital for that today.
Well, I read that they said a messed up surgery, so evidently the first one didn't.
Right.
Oh, wrong leg or something.
Apparently,
I don't know.
we stitched them together. Uh-oh. And then losing Tony Martin due to race jury weirdness, I suppose. But I guess to make it fair, Ineos lost a rider too. Right. I don't know. That was kind of wonky. Let the guys
Horseplay.
Horseplay.
Now we can. You want to talk about that at all, or do you care enough to?
I don't know. I didn't think there was too much to it. I don't know. It had been happening all stage race. It had happened in prior stage races, and they seem to have sorted it out relatively well on their own. And that was that. And it took away an interesting storyline with kind of a potential grudge match there.
Right. Well, that's the bummer of them mending it up on their own.
That's true. They did a little together press conference, and that
was odd. By the way,
a little uncomfortable.
It was really weird because Luke Rose like, oh yeah, well maybe not he, but I feel, and I was like, you saw it kept coming out. You saw more and more of this happening like before the big bang of that, and there were just 2 shitheads on the bike. You think of professionals that I know you're getting worked up, but you're getting worked up over just menial stuff. I think Luke had almost taken out Kreuzwick earlier, and then there's just retaliation. And you got to just be better than that as that seasoned pro, right? Or was this like hockey where you're the enforcer?
But I just don't view Tony Martin as the enforcer, right? I mean, he's
a Panzerwagen.
I guess we'll go set a hard pace or something. Leave it to I was going to say have Wout van Aert enforced, but he's out of the race.
Right.
But I enjoyed it. It was, like I said, it was, Bernal didn't get into yellow until stage 19. So it kind of, there was the willy won't he for all the stages leading into it. It's not like he got it at stage 10 and then they just sat on the front for the rest of the race. So it was cool. I mean, you kind of had a sense that it was wrapped up to somebody in that top 4 was going to win it. It just mattered how well Bernal could hang on. So
right. Well, let's go to the transfers. But one thing, just kind of the tour. I mean, Wout van Aert was kind of this, revelation from the Dauphiné through the tour.
Yeah,
wins a stage. A barrier, team time trial, good help leading his guys out. He did an amazing job. Take us back a few months earlier, and the big talk was Mathieu van der Poel, right?
Yes.
So now I understand teams are merging. Is there a chance we're going to see him kind of in the same spotlight in the tour like next year? I mean, is he still a Circus Clown, or what's the team name?
Circus Corendon, I believe. He says no. He says no.
He just won world championships, right? Mountain bike.
He won
race.
cyclocross, but he won a mountain bike, whatever their grand level is. It's not world championship, but
Grand
it's
Wizard.
Hopefully not. World. I don't know. Whatever their classification is. But I mean, obviously he's really good. He beat Nino Schurter, who's kind of like the Wout van Aert, Mathieu van der Poel of mountain bikes.
Oh, okay.
So he's multi-time world champion. So he beat him on a race that was in Mathieu van der Poel's favor. It was less technical, more power. But he says he's still full on focused on the Olympics for 2020.
For mountain bike?
For mountain bike. So he wants to win Olympic gold. And then I think after that he will dabble a little more, whether it's in a Grand Tour or just a road specific season is probably up in the air. But he'll probably continue to do some crossover stuff like Wout van Aert's planning to do, although it sounds like he's going to have to delay his season start because he's just out of the hospital now.
Right. But, I'm sure he's still going to do the spring classics like he did last year.
I would think so. Yeah.
I mean, you got to defend your racing.
Right.
So what was his team? And did you just hear they were merging with another team?
I've heard various rumblings and grumblings. I don't think it's Wanty because he's on Circus Corendon. I think that there's talks of Circus merging with
Arkea. Maybe
no. I want to say
it's keep guessing.
Katusha, but not Katusha, but the Alpecin wing of Katusha.
The hair loss wing.
Right, because maybe he's got good hair. I don't know. But there's talks of them merging together and becoming either a high-level Pro Conti team or potentially a World Tour team. And then that kind of leaves Katusha struggling financially. It sounds like they're already struggling financially.
Like
and the rumor is that they're merging with Arkea. Is that how you pronounce it?
Sure.
Arkea Samsic, wherever Greipel and Warren Barguil are. They're going to form a World Tour team, but it sounds like they've already lost Ilnur Zakarin.
Right.
I forget where he's going.
I had mentioned that during the tour. I'm trying to remember. I think it was like CCC or something.
I don't think is he going to CCC? That probably wouldn't be a bad fit, but so it sounds like there's a lot of not just rider shakeups, but a lot of team shakeups as well. So you'll kind of have probably some teams dissolving, other teams merging. Who knows? But
well, let's go through some of these because a lot of these are still rumor. August 1st, they're supposed to say they can start announcing.
Right.
So the only one I saw that looked like it was for sure is Matteo Trentin to CCC.
I think that's a good move for him.
Yeah.
Rumor has it he wants to target the green jersey in the Tour. And Mitchelton Scott, he was never going to have that opportunity because they're all in on GC.
Right.
So moving to CCC hopefully kind of gives him some split duty with Evermet in the classics. Evermet's obviously going to be kind of the Paris-Roubaix, Flanders guy, and then maybe leave Trentin to some of the other ones. So.
He's a decent-sized guy, but man, he goes uphill well.
Yeah.
And you saw that in the stage win that he had. Asgreen, I think, was trying to chase him down and was just not able to. And, he's won the 1 year, 2 years ago, he won 4 stages of the Vuelta. 2 of those were field sprints. 2 of those were climbing days.
Right.
With a pitch over the top. Either way, he gets the green jersey. I think that's good.
Yeah.
Vincenzo Nibali to Trek. I think he's taking his brother and his coach.
Yeah, and I think a Swan year as well. But that makes sense because they've got the Trek Segafredo arm to the team. So I think they're trying to build up that Italian base. But I don't know what that does for them in the long run. He's not young by any means. He's still talented, but they also have Richie Port, I guess. Maybe they'll just grow into being super domestiques for Ciccione. I don't know.
See that? Who knows? Mikel Landa to Bahrain Merida kind of takes the spot of that one sounds like it's.
Is that for certain?
Well, these are the rumors I'm going off of here. The only one I said I knew really for sure. Well, it sounds like Nibali is pretty for sure too.
Yeah, it's kind of
and Trenton though for sure. But these are ones during the tour. They're talking about Landa had been in contact and said last year, he's going to be going this year to Merida.
Yeah.
But then Movistar, talk about a shit show of a Tour de France.
Right.
Hey, they won the team classification, but once again, they look pathetic doing it.
So I guess Landa replaces Nibali at Bahrain Merida.
Right.
Okay.
Free Landa.
Yeah.
Because that was the problem. He wasn't free enough this tour.
I guess not. Yeah.
I didn't do the math, but I wonder what would the difference would have been if he hadn't have got pushed off the road by Bargy on the wind stage.
Who got what for 5th to
2
4th?
minutes. Yeah, maybe. Tom Dumoulin, possible buyout going to Jumbo-Visma. You heard anything more about that?
I just know that Sunweb's not super stoked on it, which probably just means they're trying to hold out for a bigger buyout.
Right.
I think that'll be an interesting development for Jumbo-Visma. Builds them into a powerhouse team. I don't know where that leaves Kreuzwick, because you've got to contend for a position as GC leader with Dumoulin and Roglic now.
Right.
And
once you start bringing, look, we got 3 strong guys. That's great for the tour. But when you do that, it's one less guy on the front setting pace on the mountains,
right,
doing work. That's just who knows?
With fewer riders, you've got Van Aert, you've got Groenewegen, you got Tennyson. So it just kind of changes the dynamic. And I know Tom Dumoulin's got a really good relationship with Chad Haga on Sunweb. So I don't know if he would kind of bring him with him. Like he's kind of his go-to guy for domestique duties.
Yeah.
So it seems like when big names move, they usually don't go alone.
Yeah.
So.
Although the ones that usually don't go alone are kind of those family countries. And when I say, like the Spanish, hey, I'm taking my brother with me.
Right.
The Italians, hey, I'm taking my brother with me.
Right.
Even the French, Thibaut Pinot is his brot's his trainer. Well, Nairo, I think he's taken his brother possibly to Arkea Samsic.
And Winner as well.
Winner Anacona.
Yeah.
What's Movistar up to? They got to sign someone now.
They've got the world champ. What else do they need?
Well, he's turned into the geriatric world champ.
He's Masters world champ.
They're losing Carapaz, possibly to Ineos. That's the rumor there.
That sounds like it's growing into more than just a rumor. It sounds like it's kind of
everyone's saying it.
Yeah. So Nairo to Arkea Samsic, and if they merge with Katusha, maybe they've got a few extra bucks to build around him.
Yeah.
We talked about this during the tour. You said he's 29?
I think so.
So he's got time to maybe develop into a better GC rider, although he's pretty darn good.
He's won the Vuelta and the Giro and been, second in the tour? You're talking about Nairo?
Yeah.
Yeah. And he just hasn't come to fruition for what you expect. Maybe it's the Spanish
it could be
issue with his team. I don't know, with him. I don't know, not quite like adopting him fully as a Colombian.
The Carapaz to Ineos move, I'm not sure I get.
Right.
I don't know why he would do that unless it was just strictly money.
Possibly. He's young. Look, Bernal going there, he's never going to probably leave.
Right.
And I think he's a good guy. Maybe it's similar. Look, I'm from Ecuador. I don't really fit in with the Spanish, even though they speak Spanish.
Right.
Maybe it's not quite the fit.
And if he's always just given the role of, hey, the Giro's yours, that's not too bad, I suppose.
No,
right?
I'd take the Giro.
Yeah.
What about McNulty from Raleigh? You say he's going to UAE?
Yeah, that was the article
Smiley
today.
Face, no?
It's a step up to the World Tour. It just seems like, who does UAE have now on the GC side? Do they still have Aru?
Yeah, I don't know if he's staying though. There were rumors about him flying the coupe this year.
He seems to bounce all over, and I don't think he's gonna develop.
You're talking about his riding style?
That and his ability to finish a race.
Right.
But it just seems like McNulty he's young, and he's going into a team that doesn't seem to have any real strong GC leadership, and I just wonder if that's going to put a ton of pressure on him and burn him out.
They have Dan Martin, so he might get some, if Dan stays, he might at least get some, be able to see a good GC rider.
Yeah.
I mean, in some of these 7-day stage races and such, to learn from. I think Dan's a good guy.
He seems like it, but it seems like if you believe the conspiracy theories, maybe he's going to Ineos. I don't know.
Oh, everyone is.
Either way, it's cool to see him kind of transition up into the world tour.
Right.
That's going to change his life considerably because I think he still trains out of the USA, and I can't imagine he'll do that with UAE.
Probably not. I think they have to train over there in the UAE. No, I don't think so.
A lot of hill climbing.
No. They do it in parking garages. No, what was interesting about McNulty was we've been talking about him this year because he didn't have a very good Tour of California.
Right.
And he just kind of suffered from there on. We saw great things of him last year.
Yeah.
And then he had some early season success, really good success. So obviously this thing was probably in the works then, and you don't base it off of what you did at the end. I think he was sick as well.
He was sick, and I heard grumblings about a UAE connection as far back as like maybe March, February. So it sounds like it's probably something that's been ongoing.
Right. Well, good for him for getting that done. Speaking of things that are kind of maybe hitting the crapper though, Rowan Dennis to the unemployment line, or what do you?
I think
You think he's going to stay? I mean, he basically said, all those sponsors you have here,
he can't hang
including
around.
title sponsor
Right.
Merida, was crap.
I wouldn't be surprised if he goes to, was it CCC?
Yeah.
I mean, he seemed to have a decent enough relationship with, was it Okowitz that's there? And
Jim came out and said, oh, he was always good with me.
Right. So. It's funny because you see, I don't know if you've looked at Dennis's Twitter at all, because some folks kind of called him out like, oh, you're not really a team guy. So on his Twitter, he like shared some snapshots of emails, and it just seems like whoever on the team at Bahrain Merida is communicating with him is just completely walking on eggshells around him. Like, hey, we said you would do this race, but that race has been changed. Do you think maybe sort of you can find it in your heart to come out and do a time trial, please? He's like, see, the team, they're super friendly. It's like,
he's delusional.
It just feels like he's always on the verge of snapping. So
I've had several clients like that.
Yeah.
Nilson Palace, we don't know the status. I know he's with Jumbo. I think he had a 2-year contract.
Right.
So we're hoping someone signs him, or Nelson, maybe you can let us know the status.
If he's re-signed or if he's looking elsewhere. Usually this, obviously, August 1, it's when you start to find stuff out. Right. So,
and then at Nationals was the guy that kind of put him in the hurt locker there, Stephen Bissett.
Yeah, he's gone from, was it First Internet Bank Cycling?
Something like that.
I mean, they did great. They went 1, 2, 3 in amateur nationals. Right. I think they pretty much won everything. So he got picked up by Wildlife Generations, I think is what they're called. Sam Boardman's on the team. So he'll be racing Tour of Utah, I assume, in a GC role.
Did he already get put up? Did he already get a call up to them, like from nationals? He went to them already, or is that for next year, or is his first international team racing Utah?
No, he's on Wildlife.
Okay, so he's like, they're like mid-season. Come on over.
Yeah, they're like,
probably had to buy him out of that lucrative contract he was in. No offense, but he probably didn't have one.
Right, and the other one I threw on here that was semi-confirmed today is Viviani, Sabatini, and Consani all headed to Cofidis.
Or Cofidis.
I don't know if I get that move. It doesn't seem like anybody that leaves Quick Step, DeCoinic, whatever they are, does well, especially a sprinter. Like a sprinter that's left there fades quickly.
Well, Cavendish.
Cavendish, Kittle.
Well, I mean, Cavendish did okay after he left there.
Did he?
Yeah, he went to. Remember, he won a bunch of more stages there a few years ago with Dimension Data in the Tour.
He did okay, but you figure like Gaviria, what's he done this year?
Yeah, I don't know if he's been injured. I totally get what you're saying, and this it brings to light because you saw Viviani when he had the perfect lead out, he had a chance at winning because he's not that top notch. I mean, really the two in this Tour were Groenewegen and Caleb by far.
Yep.
And those guys, Groenewegen had a much better lead out. Caleb, you just get him in the right spot, and then he surfs and does his thing, and he'd be fine at any team. Yeah. So yeah, it'll be interesting.
Who knows? And then the other rumor that I didn't put on here is that Bennett is probably headed to DeCoinic to replace Viviani from Bora.
Sam Bennett.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, but that's still rumored at this point, but it seems like it would be the best fit. And the other thing is Kittle may or may not also go to Jumbo-Visma.
Like come back.
Right.
Interesting.
in a support role, I guess, for Groenewegen.
All right.
Well, we'll see.
So those are the rumors. Hey, if you have some rumors you want to put out there, go ahead and just chime in wherever, maybe on our YouTube channel. Some things that aren't rumors. USACrits. We'll talk about that real quick here.
There's been a bunch of them, huh?
We saw I saw some video on the Boise race. There was Salt Lake and San Rafael. We watched San Rafael. There were some wrecks there.
At San Rafael?
Yeah, at San Rafael. We saw those. So first of all, the Boise Twilight Crit. We saw Justin Williams wins that. You saw that video, right? The team video. They'll break down. I think Bahati, Rashawn talked about it a little bit for them.
Bahati did, and I think Williams also put out a video of his own. It was probably one of the better ones that I've seen, just because the production of it is really cool.
Yeah.
Where it's the last few laps of the race, and they do an overlay. I guess a voiceover of Frankie Andreo that does kind of the play-by-play, if you will. And it's really well done, and it's kind of cool to see Justin's approach to the last 3 corners of the race, and just you can kind of see his thinking process as it shakes out. I think it's Miguel Bryan comes in on him
right hand corner.
Yeah, I don't know if that's the last corner, second to last corner. I think it's second to last corner. And then Justin has the mindset of being in a position where he can effectively box Miguel in the sprint
behind Corey,
right behind his brother in his lead out, and then still take the win. It's like, that's good thinking.
Corey goes 1, and then this Miguel second, and then Justin third. They come around the right hand corner, and Justin kind of overlaps with him, Miguel, and Miguel, instead of coming inside on Corey, who's in front of him, he's right behind him. Yeah. Corey's sprinting, and they just pinch him in the corner,
right?
And then boom, he hits it in the last 150 or whatever. No one can come by him, and it's an easy win. And the guys, that was a really good technical video to watch on that kind of thinking of just having awareness, because who's going to do that?
Yeah, no, that was really well done. Like I said, just from a production perspective, the video is really cool. It's cool to see the crowd out there as well. I mean, it's cool to see these Twilight Crits draw people out.
Right.
It's kind of fun.
Did you see any of the Salt Lake City, Utah event?
I did not.
So I didn't get to see what the crowd was like there. But Justin wins that one as well, right?
He did, yeah.
And then they come into San Rafael, and there was a wreck out there. There was, I think, Willie Myers, we've talked to him, local guy, got in a nasty wreck out there.
Was that at Salt Lake or was that at Boise?
I believe it was at Salt Lake.
Was it? Okay.
Yeah. Because I think that was the same one that Timmy Bauer broke his hand at.
Gotcha.
And then they had Manhattan the next day. I don't know how Legion of
they
LA won. They won that too?
Corey won that one.
Yeah. And then they come out to San Rafael, our local race. We didn't show up, but we watched a bunch of those races. Some good stuff.
We showed up online.
We showed up online. And Legion of LA, once again, they didn't get their sprinter guys, but they get Tyler Williams, McElroy, I don't know, and about Cooper Rombold's in that, hammering that thing off the front, and those two just kind of do a clinic again of how to win a race.
They did really well, because they had, the break was 7 riders.
Yeah.
They had 3 guys in there. They had Sean McElroy, Tyler Williams, and Diego was in there as well. And John Borstelman from Mark Pro was up there. And then Robbie Carpenter, relatively solid pro, was in there as well.
UHC rally.
I think it was Diego set up the lead out, and then Tyler Williams came through with McElroy, and they just went 2-1, 1-2. Solid finish.
Right. McElroy with the win, Tyler Williams second. Yeah. They're both posting up. Thomas Gibbons and Automatic Racing, not sure who that is, in third.
So he's leading the USA Crit Series overall. Well, so he's not winning, he's right up there.
Well, he did the right thing, getting in the break too. Yeah. Cooper Rombold, though, man, he looked like he was he's come out and done some rides that we've been doing, and kind of makes us look silly. So it's good to see him pull it off. And top 10, Josh Carling, SP2 Life. We raced with him. He is an old man that goes really fast. He does really good in those races. Justin
Williams won the field sprint,
of course.
So
let's talk real quick. So Brian Larson, local NCNCA guy, rides for California, Team California. He went head. I think it was in that last corner, which everyone goes down in.
Right.
If you're gonna have a wreck, that's except for last year. Remember we saw the guy on the top of the course hit the sandbag.
Yes.
Well, that was a sandbag. This time someone goes down, and Brian does a somersault. I don't know if he catapults off his head.
It looked like the guy in front of him rolled a tubular. Is what the theory is.
People?
and then kind of just left Brian in a spot with really nowhere to go except into the concrete. And he did with a lot of force, and I think he's experiencing memory loss, so he's probably got a healthy concussion, some paralysis in his right arm, so there's probably some nerve damage from the impact. So it's nasty crash. I've seen a few different angles in slow motion. It's not something I'd want to go through.
No.
I've seen Willie's video as well, and it's not something I'd want to go through either. I mean, he just gets pile driven into a fence at full sprint.
Yeah, it looks pretty nasty. So I hope those guys are doing okay. Maybe we'll put it on our Facebook, and there's some GoFundMe's if you guys want to try to find out for them. Look, racing is dangerous. No one wants to get. This is just supposed to be fun stuff, and so it's never good. Anything else on the USA Crits or local crits? We haven't talked much. There was nationals going on. Anything you just want to throw in that's been on your mind over the last few months?
How many more of the USA Crits are there? Because I know it's like 10-ish races, and there's a year-long series, and I know that they do a kind of lap leader series. They do an overall series. They do a team series. Because I think Legion doesn't have an individual leader because they haven't done all the races, but I think they're the leading team. I think there's one coming up in Colorado.
Yeah, Littleton's coming up, I think tomorrow, or this. Yeah, maybe it's tomorrow. Okay. I'm trying to load it up here while we talk. Littleton Twilight, August 3rd, and then Benchmark Classic, Westchester, Pennsylvania on the 10th, and it looks like that's it.
Okay. So 2 more?
Yeah. Littleton's a good one. That one was, I think, I was able to do that when they first were doing it, and we did a Twilight. It's a good fast race. If they use the same course, who knows? Yeah,
so I mean, it's cool to see the big hitters of crit racing go at it. So it's and then you got races like we didn't really talk about because I didn't see much of it. I don't know if you did either, but Manhattan Beach Grand Prix, that's a huge race,
right?
$10,000.
That was the day after Salt Lake,
right? It's impressive to see guys do a Twilight crit in Salt Lake, and then basically race a midday crit the next day in SoCal. Yeah. I mean, that's a lot of travel on heavy legs and still being able to perform. So that's
we have a local rider, Timmy Bauer. He was with SP2 Life, but I think he guest rode for Gutenplan, and he crashes and breaks his wrist at Salt Lake.
Right.
Still flies down, borrows someone else's bike, does that Manhattan race. So, gluttons for punishment. I hope Timmy's doing okay.
Yeah.
How about some things that make you go,
So the one I've got is looking back to the tour, and as well as Alaphilippe did, I just wonder if there's going to be any pressure from the team or sponsors for him to think about being a GC guy. Probably won't be for the Giro because he's been coming off some of the classics he's doing, but whether it's the tour or maybe something with the shorter, steep climbs like the Vuelta, he's told the press that maybe sometime down the road, but not next year. You just got to wonder if there's going to be some pressure from big key sponsors that want to see him in that role, if there's going to be some internal kind of pushing him in that direction.
Right. So it was interesting that that whole conversation is happening. I don't know that you necessarily get truth out of these guys,
right,
such as what was his actual training coming into the race, because he was fit. He was obviously ready for a 3-week tour. He wasn't just coming in for like stage hunting. So what was he doing? And then I'm sorry, you're French. You're winning these races. You were in yellow for the longest anyone's been since, probably, as a Frenchman. You're not going to change to try to do this. I mean, you're top 5. Come on. You win a time trial. So it's got to be in his mind. And then what does that do to you as a rider? His potential of changing everything the next few years. I mean, it would be interesting. I could see him completely flopping next year due to, trying to revamp everything to get this, and then who knows?
Yeah, because I think he was going in with the mindset of being a support character for Moss. Moss was like the GC guy, and he's out. He's leaving.
By the way, that's another one. I think he went to Movie Star.
Yeah, that sounds right. So I think he's Spanish, so it makes sense. So yeah, I mean, if they don't really have a GC guy, are they going to look to him to fill that role? Like I said, he's French. Tour de France is a pretty big race. He did very well at it. It wouldn't surprise me if, while everybody's saying no, that there isn't some internal debate about how hard should we push him into that position.
Right. Good question, and it will be interesting to see. I don't know if you'll see him for Worlds. I think Worlds is in the UK this year.
Yes,
am I right?
They had to they're potentially rerouting it because one of the old timey bridges that the course was supposed to go over washed out this week.
They're going to do the bridge, or are they going to redo the route?
I think they're looking at redoing the route.
Is it a hilly route?
It's kind of punchy.
Okay.
Like I know guys like Sagan's looking at it as a good course for him.
He's a circuit race winner. I don't have any hums,
Why
so I just didn't really come up with anything.
Okay.
Did you want me to just make something up on the spot?
Yeah.
How about insurance? So, we should probably look at this. These guys are getting these GoFundMes. I know the USA Cycling kicks in for insurance.
Right.
It's probably like a high deductible, and then maybe covered in 70%. So
it seems to change. I've done some reading on it. Like they only start to come into play when your insurance is tapped out.
So if these guys don't have insurance racing, I remember when I was young, I just went and got like catastrophic insurance.
Yeah, like an Aflac or something.
Yeah, well, yeah. So you pay a very small minimum premium, and you're getting something like if you're gonna be in the hospital for 3-4 days. Okay, you're gonna spend a little money, but you're not gonna lose everything. So
right.
Maybe guys look into some. I don't know what they have out there right now.
Yeah.
Anyway. Maybe we'll take a look at that. Masters Nationals comes up August 7th, so that starts next week to 11th. I mean, they have every flipping category under the sun. If every 4-year increments or 5-year increments, from like 35 up to like 110 for men and women, and it's in Colorado Springs. I'm kind of disappointed I'm not going this year, but there's no chance I'd do anything well. I'd be able to finish the time trial.
Provided there's no time cut. Maybe you start to exceed a certain pace. Like,
what do you mean time cut? It's like an Omnium, right?
They might just tell you hey, come on.
You're not even allowed to finish. The way. It isn't out and back. Right. Maybe they just not let me come back.
Have you looked at any of the courses?
So I've looked at the courses.
Okay.
And I'm going to go look at my old diary stuff that I used to keep notes on. Because the banning, well, 2 of them. I've done the road races around the Air Force Academy.
Yes.
Brutal. I think they had the 86 World Championships there. Moreno Argentine won it.
Okay.
I've done that race out there as a collegiate. I did it when it was 94, 95, somewhere in there. It must have been 96. I think it was one of those where World Championships was in Colombia. So all these racers didn't want to train there because there was a little death camp going there. So they came out to Colorado and they put on a race, and we in Durain.
Okay.
A bunch of big pros, and we did the Air Force Academy race, and it's tough. It's a solid World Championships type of race. So
I looked at the route just briefly a few minutes ago, and it looks like it's 900 feet of climbing for every 10 miles.
Yeah.
The laps are like 10, 11 miles.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's not going to be an easy course.
No, it's not an easy course. It's up and down. It's got some sustained climbing. And then the crit, I'm trying to remember back. It said Banning, and we used to do a crit out there in Colorado Springs called Banning. It's got a little punchy to it, so it's not necessarily easy either. But a crit's a crit. I mean, unless it's Nevada City.
Right. Yeah, no, it looks like it's the profiles aren't super current on that one, it seems, but yeah, it looks like it's got a little bit of rolling climb to it.
And then you just have the fact that you're at almost 6,000, around 6,000 feet there. So it tends to.
So I kind of scanned the registration list to see who's in. I don't know if you can do a day of for these or not. So I don't know if it's.
They think they said registration closes today.
Oh, okay. So there might be some last minute entries, but just looking at Strava, I know Thirsty Bear racer Zach Morvant looks like he's been putting in a pretty healthy altitude camp.
Right.
Like a week at Truckee, and I think he's already in Colorado Springs acclimating to the elevation. I think Jonathan Baker's been in Colorado Springs for about 2-3 months or something like that. So you've got some guys who are obviously targeting this as like a go-to race. I said Scott Giles is registered. I reached out to Brian Zimney to see if he had any ambitions of defending his title for the greatness of NorCal, but never heard a response. I'm not sure if he's going to do a late entry there or not. Dan Bryant looks like he's registered, so he's the reigning 45 to 49 time trialist, but he's been moved up in age category to 50 to 54. And looking at the results from last year, the winner for the 50 to 54, Daniel Casper, was 1 second slower than Dan. So those two are pretty evenly matched. So it'll be interesting to see how those guys kind of come out.
Yeah, and you mentioned here, Dan Martin. Did you say it? Sorry, Dan Martin's not registered to defend his. Look, online registration closes August 2nd, which we're recording this on August 2nd. So It says online reg, so you still might be able to reg. Maybe you could do day of.
Yeah.
Bahati, Rashawn Bahati is doing the crit. What category is that? 30? Is he just now? He's got to be able to 35,
he's 37 racing age.
Okay, so he's not in my division. So big
and
deal.
I think Sean Bagley, I think he was registered, and then there was a handful of other support guys. I think Nick Theobald's registered. He's been riding really well.
Yeah, he's won some national championships before. That would probably be good for him. I mean, he goes well uphill, and yet he still has a good enough kick on him. So
right,
dude, that road race, that's pretty exciting. I don't know if there's any way we'll be able to watch it, but really exciting, because that course, it's got some myth. I mean, it's got some history to it. I think Le Mans was top 3 there. I think he was I want to say he was on the podium with Argentine that year. I don't know. We'll have to do a little digging into it, maybe for next week. How about any other things for nationals that you're excited about?
That I'm excited about?
Or disappointed about? Or you want to mention before we
I would say I'm just hoping that sometime in the near future the Masters Nationals kind of does a return to the West Coast, or even kind of western third of the U.S. It just seems like for just going out to race, like I have no ability to race in Colorado at elevation on a course like that. So it'd be cool to see it make its way back over here sometime.
All right. I would totally disagree. You've been riding really strong. All you have to do is start eating like the high school girl with an eating disorder and you'll cut so much. You'll just fly. You're really fit right now. Look, it was about here in Bend. It's been out there. It's always at elevation. It is in Utah, of course. So good luck to all those guys racing out there. And maybe we'll hey, you guys win. Maybe we'll bring you on the show. That's not your treat. That's our treat. Right. But, come in and talk to us. How about some winners and losers? You have anybody?
Touched on them briefly a little bit. Again, this is looking back to the tour. I picked a winner and a loser as the same person. Yeah. How about that? Going with Kreuzwick. So winner because, he had a really good tour. 3rd place, podium, never anything to be upset about. Feel like there were times maybe his team could have been a little more aggressive to his benefit, but whatever. Still good result.
Right.
Then potentially a loser because it sounds like Dumoulin's head to that team, which I think it's going to be a challenge for Kreuzwick to get a lead position as the Tour GC guy with Dumoulin there and even Roglic there. So it's kind of this may have been his last shot to get a really good result. I don't know. So
and that's not his fault necessarily.
It's not his fault, but he's just the victim of the circumstance.
Right.
So.
Right. Well, it would be interesting to see how they, every year how they change the tour routes and stuff because I think he would have benefited. He's coming off the last day, but with longer. He tends to, those long drawn. You look at him and go, oh, maybe he's a punchy rider, but no, he really does ride a lot like a Dumoulin style.
Right. So. And then you figure this is going to be this current tour that we just had was the lightest in TTs that we'll probably see for a while. Right. And anything with more TTs is obviously going to favor Dumoulin. Did
you hear me talking? I probably didn't listen to this show about the tour, like the 1989 tour, how much time trialing they had in there?
It seems like,
it was almost 200K of time trials.
Yeah. It's amazing how much that has changed where we had like a 30, 40K one. Right. That was it. Yeah. The team time trial, you can be a terrible time trialist and come away with a good result there just by sitting on your team.
I'm trying to remember. I think it was 87, one of those years where it was like 60-mile time trial. And, someone like Andy Hampstead.
Yeah.
Now, how many 10 minutes increments can I lose? Because it's just brutalized. That's just...
At that era, we'll say mid-'80s, because I know Le Mans was one of the first adopters of aero equipment.
Right.
Were they just rolling road bikes?
So they had full-on what they called funny bikes. It was like a 24-inch front or something, or smaller wheel. But then they had big cow horns. So it would be like a angled, sloped-out time trial bike.
Yeah.
But their arms are way out like this. So
lose-lose. Okay.
Yeah, I don't know. So my winner is going to be anybody that watched or listened to this podcast or anyone else that heard people ripping on movie stars' tactics during the tour. because Movistar is my loser, and if you watch them as a team, you were perceptive enough, you would realize things you should not be doing. So you are a winner if you were catching those. That team, I mean, I think they could have done better. Like even the one time when I started to praise them was stage 6, Planche de Belfi, Valverde, who all of a sudden turns into this domestique, and he's driving on the front and he's doing what he's right and he peels off. He's the highest placed guy, I think, for the team at the end. And like, well, you blew it on stage 6. You could have you sat on and probably got a top 5.
Yeah.
So, and
it seems like they tried that 3-liter thing last year. It didn't work, so we'll try it again.
But they attacked themselves,
right? Like they could have had an opportunity where they focused on a GC guy, but still had the team depth where they could go after a stage win here or there by letting a guy fade really far back. Like chasing down Quintana when he was in a position to potentially move himself into a better position just seemed outrageous.
But then it almost maybe the defense is, did you see what he did the next day?
Right. But you can't really predict that.
No, but then, when his team's chasing him down, maybe his motivation is like, okay, look, I was 8 minutes up. You took 4.5 minutes out of me.
Right. What am I doing?
And then he was the fastest one up the final climb that day. So
yeah,
whatever.
I got a supplemental winner.
Oh, I like this.
It's a twofer, and it's going to be me, and it'll be Curt for being able to accurately predict the winner of the tour.
Okay. I didn't know that Curt did too.
He claims he did. I'll take him at his word.
I know he did because you're right, and he was really a Bernal guy all the way, which is strange because was he pulling for Bernal because he doesn't like Ineos, or he just doesn't like G? I mean, do you know can we channel his thoughts on this?
I don't know what his thoughts are on that. I'm not a big fan of Ineos, and I'm kind of neutral on Bernal, but it's just the guy's going to win.
Final prediction. Do you think he's going to be this megastar, or is he going to fall into fame and just blow up and not be the rider we think he could be?
I think it will be a good career, and I think he'll have multiple GC wins, provided sometime in the next 2 to 3 years Ineos doesn't fall apart or Brailsford get dragged into Parliament and stripped away from the team.
Caned.
Right. It just seems like their structure and organization is so fine-tuned there that they can churn average riders into great riders. So if you take a great rider, they're just going to turn him into just a beast.
I heard, and I agree with you, and I heard so many of these people talking, like former pros, look, G and Froome, they kind of come into this at a later, and so I think they're more mature, and they're already developed themselves. They got kind of the party stuff out of them maybe. Yeah. And he's super young, and the worry is, oh, you're going to turn into this party hound. But you watch him with his family, I think he's so enmeshed, unless he really just like ditches his wife, his fiance,
right,
and his family. He seems like really religious, and they're just kind of, if he's got this grounding, he's probably not going to be allowed to be a party guy. He's going to be a good guy. He's going to be focused on his work. And like they used to say about Tiger, the only thing that can bring him down is his family. And little did they know it was Denny's or Waffle Barn.
One of those, yeah. But no, I think Bernal's got a good shot to have a really long career, and it seems like Colombia is really supporting him as well.
Right. Well, yeah, that's pretty exciting. Yeah. Tour of Colombia next year will be really something to behold.
Yeah, I wonder who they're gonna have lead that. Carapaz, Bernal, Nairo,
Rojas. Isn't that the other guy that they have too?
Who? Totally tangential to this. EF. Who's the young guy?
Sosa. Maybe that's what it was.
That they have. That's a really good climber. I think he might be
Martinez
Ecuadorian
or something like that.
Higuita.
Yeah.
He did really well at California.
Yeah.
Be cool to see him, and Pogacar's with UAE.
Yeah.
That's a good combo for McNulty.
There you go.
And Martin. I think, I forgot about Carapaz, and I've already forgotten his name.
Pogacar?
Yes. It's got a car, Carapaz, Pogacar.
Yeah. Richard.
Okay, maybe they've got some young talent and they're growing. Okay. Things might be falling into place.
All right. We're going to end on that. A positive note. Chris is excited about UAE. Let that be a lesson to you. Any last things you want to say to the people, or excitement you have coming up for cycling in general, or for predictions, anything? So you get the last word in here.
The last word in here. I'm just trying to find the motivation on my end to go out and race. It's been a while, so I gotta dig deep there.
It's been a while since we've raced. You are riding really well. You keep showing me your fitness on Training Peaks, and it's just fake. It's but comes to fruition when you're out on the road. So congratulations to you. It's my desire to get there as well. But all the ice cream I've been eating lately, it's just tough.
Yeah, I ate some yesterday and I felt bad about myself.
Yeah. Well, I didn't. All right. Thanks, everyone, for joining us. Chris, great having you back here. It's better to be with you than just in here solo. Thanks, everyone, for tuning in. Check us out. Facebook page, anywhere the iTunes, Between Two Wheels podcast, on the iTunes, Stitcher, Podbeam, anywhere it can be found. And once again, thanks for listening and enjoy your ride.